So if we added the sales objective, typically Google wants you to create or fully build out these asset groups, but in this case, we don't really want to. Here's also an important thing to do if you're able to. So in this case, this would be going to the landing page of this website, but we want to show for the products that we selected, whether it's one product or all the products. So it's okay to run this to the whole landing page in the beginning. This actually does matter. For some reason, it can drastically change performance. But I'm going to keep this the way it is right now just because we're also showing all these products. But this is important for the future, and I'll get into that later on. You want to go through, sometimes it lets you do this, sometimes it doesn't. Click shop now, and then you want to add nothing else because this basically serves as a shopping campaign. You want to click next. I always recommend minimum $100 a day, but also if you can, Google has a great recommendation based on their budget, but yours wouldn't be this high because it'd be a new account. You want to click next, and then it's not going to be published, but you guys would have a publish button right here, and then you would publish this campaign. I'll go back into the main view. So we have the standard shopping that I was running and the Performance Max US and Canada, which it was Canada at the time too, because I was running multiple geos. So this was day 2 of running the campaign, and that's pretty much how I set it up. There's nothing else running, as you guys can clearly see. We had 102 clicks and total purchase value of, well, I showed it earlier, $5.99. Day 3, this was a very promising day. Ads were further optimizing, and let me just double check what sales were on the website. So day 3, April 3rd, we did actually 634 in sales. I don't know if you guys can see that. 634 in sales. Google, it says 509, which is good because that actually allows us to scale more. So we spent 121 to make back $634, which is very promising. And the same thing, I did not touch any of these campaigns at all for this time. And I'll just see if I can verify that. Don't correct me. Let's see if I'm correct or wrong. So actually for this day, I went from 250 to 450 to get more spend, but Google actually capped me at 120 day in spend. And then I applied auto recommendations, which I'll explain in a minute. And then the CPC from 150 to 175, that's on the shopping campaign because I was seeing good performance from the campaign, which I'll show you guys here. Good performance, 2+, and then also a 5x return on ad spend. And so I wanted to just scale my campaign. So I increased the bids and I also increased the budget. And then also, let's see what else I did. Max CPC, budget amount, so 250 to 300. So that way, whenever the ads were ready to spin, like the day after, we'd have the budget and also the campaign structure to be able to spend. But once again, kept everything else targeting and everything else pretty much the same besides just editing the bids. All right, day 3 or 4, I guess, of running. Don't know what happened around this time. I guess ads, or maybe it was another just the spend cap, $122, which typically for new accounts, it goes away within a few days or maybe even sooner than that. But for this account, let's see, there was so much traffic going to Google. So Google says that it brought in only $419 in sales, but the website itself, I'm actually showing $239. So because there was a spin cap and because I adjusted the bids and the budgets to spin more aggressively, I hit the cap pretty much right away. And this was like the moment that I knew there was going to be a lot of potential based on the impressions, based on the CPC, based on the clicks. And I was like, all right, this is going to be really good because I was getting sales like at these dead hours. And typically you wouldn't do that. Change history. Let's see what I did on this day. I didn't actually know that I had a daily cap to my store until like I actually was like, wait, I'm capped at this. And so I did change the budgets significantly, so they would only spend more and more as time goes on. I set TROAS to 190% on the max conversion value, which is the bidding strategy on the Performance Max campaign, and then also increased budget from $300 to $900. This was day 4, and day 4 I'm only showing $230 in sales from Shopify. Day 5 I know was a way better day. I believe spin cap was removed and my ads were able to freely spend. And looking at what I have on Shopify, so day 5, this was, let's see, we spent $388 and the sales actually do match the dashboard. So we spent $388 to make back $1,100. It's $1,178 on Shopify, $1,140 on here. And as you guys can see, like the past days, there was caps at the spending. It was like just like capping me at a specific time. Once I hit $120, But after a few days, we had that finally lifted, which was phenomenal, and ads were actually able to spend. So we had a actual return on ad spend of 293% or 2.9x, and it does look like I added a couple more campaigns. So this was a different day. This day, I'll go into my change history to show what I did. I had 127 changes, which is crazy because I really wanted to scale. Start out by adding budget. So I made a demand gen shopping. I don't think that got approved. And then also I went through and added a few more budget created, and that's just for the PMAX. So I did a couple campaigns. Previously it was the feed only US and Canada, and then also the standard shopping. And previously I didn't have any search or this, which was one of these. I didn't have one of these that did before. Let me see which one that was. Yoruba shopping, PMAX, feed only. Okay, yeah, so I didn't have a couple of these, but I'll just go through the rundown of this campaign. I have search themes. This is whenever I was adding search themes to the campaigns. And typically, if you're running an ingredient or a product or like whatever it is, so this is really important. And for this instance, I'll just expose the product that I was running, and I actually run it on a different account. This was this was it. This was the product. And it was super viral on TikTok, and I was like, I'm gonna freaking take this and run on Google Ads, because I was like, why not? And so I was able to capture all the traffic from Google, traffic from TikTok, #1. Now, revenue is down, but last 180 days, like $10.75 million in revenue on TikTok. And so this is the thing that I do on Google. We have a product that's doing well that can be white labeled, and we can run it with like main ingredients or like specific attributes or like variants or whatever we can like target on Google, like keywords specifically. And so this instance, I wouldn't be targeting the brand keywords because nobody's gonna be looking this brand up on Google, or only a handful of people are. This instance, I'd be targeting Yerba Magic, Yerba Mate Instant Tea Powder, and identifying the main things that people are seeing on TikTok, so that way I can capture the demand over on Google. So for this instance, I added, and typically it's stuff around your product. Don't make them too broad, make them pretty direct, so that way you're showing on the direct pages that have the highest intent buyers. I did Yerba Mate benefits, tea, weight loss, TikTok, magic, powder, side effects, nature's Ozempic, because that was one of the hooks on TikTok, which that one's like a little bit more broad. Yerba Mate reviews, best Yerba Mate energy. This was the main selling points that I found on TikTok, and I was able to apply these as basically keywords in my shopping campaign to serve my ads to people that were looking up stuff like this. And this campaign specifically did, a bulk of the sales actually. So from doing broad campaign to now a targeted campaign, and this had most of the spend, this brought in 27 conversions all, and then also $1,000 in sales with a return on ad spend of 322%. If I go into the other campaigns for the day, this one right here, that's the one I just showed. This PMAX feed only, this one didn't really spend as much because we were spending more on this one. And typically if you're running multiple shopping campaigns, they're actually competing with each other to like see which one is able to get more spend. And then also have the standard shopping. So performance max shopping, standard shopping, they're not gonna compete with each other, but also it's not the most ideal way to run. But I wanted to run as many campaigns as possible, so that way I can scale up as fast as possible. So even if there is overlap, even if there is some competition between the two, it's still totally fine with me, and I was still able to capture the demand. So this one, as you guys saw, it was broad with search themes added. The second, which this one didn't get any sales, this one was now kind of targeted, but I added this later on. It's showing this now because it's 30 days into the future, but in the beginning, it was just broad. And then also with the branded search plus shopping, this one was a full build out, which this one will make more sense in the future. But essentially, whenever you were to go on to Google, let's look up like pillowcase, and you're gonna find products or brands that are running ads typically here. And so my goal was to run an ad on, let's say Young LA, for example. This is a custom product, custom website, and if you see, let me do this, Young LA. If you see like an ad like this, our goal was to create an ad that runs on other competitors' traffic or branded keywords. You can either mimic what their ads look like or build your own with a really good compelling copy to persuade buyers that are going to competitors in order to carry out a conversion on the website. So this would be what a search ad would look like that's built on Performance Max, which I'll go to here. And so typically they have videos or photos, not videos, but more photos, and then also these are site links that you would add. And this is really important because that you can position yourself as if you're the main brand on Google. Otherwise, somebody else is going to probably bid and take your spot. But even if they're bidding to take your spot, that's whenever we get into aggressive bidding on the Performance Max side. We have a max conversion value set to a specific TROAS, or we don't set a TROAS. But typically, if we don't set a TROAS, CPCs can go haywire, and it's just not the ideal thing to do. And so for that time, I had it 200%. So that way, I'm basically telling Google, hey, I'm willing to spend $500 a day to make back $1,000 a day in sales, or $1,500 a day in sales. And it's the same thing. The TROAS is important. You don't always have to run it, but I do recommend it, and it's based on your goals and also based on the budget that you have. But this will make more sense in the future. I'm just kind of showing you guys how I set up these campaigns and how you can do the same thing. So I'll go into and this also did capture conversion. It was a 2x, which was profitable. Go into the next day. You guys saw how I set up this on the 5th. The next day was a good day. And I'll pull up Shopify just to prove it to you guys. Oh, I got a call soon. And then, let's see, the 6th, we have $3,153 in sales, and we spent a whopping $1,200. So Google is actually only showing $2,200 in sales, and with $1,200 to spend, although the day was actually a 3x return on ad spend and not a 185%. And I'll show you guys the main ones that carried out most of the conversions. So the feed only with the search themes, that one did carry out a bulk of the conversions. That one did I'd probably assume it's around $2,000 in sales. And then the search campaign that I just talked about, the brand search campaign, this one position yourself as if you're like the actual brand or the main person behind running the product. This one was more profitable than it says, because Shopify says $3,100 in sales and Google is only saying $584. And obviously that's like through all the campaigns, but essentially I didn't really do much besides just editing the budgets and also like amount. I removed a few videos because I was just getting a bunch of spend, and that was in the branded search plus shopping because I was going to test like YouTube Shorts, but it just didn't go well and I just spent a bunch of money for no reason. And then essentially just editing budgets, increasing. So that way for the day after, we had a bunch of budgets to go into the day. I don't believe I added any more campaigns. It was just these setups. And so for like, let's say the 1st until the 6th, our total was so far $2K spend with probably like $6,000 or $7,000 in sales because Google wasn't reporting 2K from the 6th. But you guys can see like we're scaling, and that was like the most important thing to do. And it was pretty quickly from freaking $0 or $5 to spending $1,200 plus and making back $3,000 in ads. Not bad. So I'll go into the 7th. Now this day, I know that this day was really good because I did videos and I was kind of documenting the journey on scaling this brand. Day 7 was a whopping $4,950 in sales, and Google spent a grand total of $3,200.40. So pushing margins a little bit here, but I'm also going for scale, and I wanted to see how far I could push because there was so much traffic coming in from TikTok, coming in from Facebook. People were starting to rip this brand and running on Facebook ads, but there was still no Google ads, and I was one of the first people to like even not find the product, but to really be able to scale this one on Google. And within 1 week, I'm already doing almost $5,000 a day in sales, which was phenomenal. So once again, the main campaign was just one campaign. This one spent a whopping $2,000. And if I go into the campaign view, it's the same thing. I did not do anything else. I was just capturing the demand for people, what they were looking up on TikTok or on Facebook. And I was positioning myself as if I was the main brand behind everything because I caught the demand, I caught the traffic, the rush before everybody else caught on. So you guys can see the search plus shopping, the standard shopping, and then also the Mate US only. This one had almost 100 sales. This one had 26, and this one had 1. So day 7 was really, really strong. And I'm going to go into day 8 really quickly. I believe this was a down day. Yeah, this was a down day. We were at 39.88. or $39.98, so almost 4K in sales, and we spent $2,500. The reason for that is I was getting caught up on fulfillment, and then also making sure I had the best quotes, best rates, which I do have a collaboration with my manufacturing that I'm going to be dropping in the group pretty soon. But essentially, nothing else changed. It was just these 3 campaigns. I did increase the budgets, but I also decreased them a bit too. So I was testing changing the bids, and so for this day, let's see if I could loads. So I was scaling down from $2,600 to $2,000. I changed the T ROAS in the beginning, but essentially scaling down, and also adding some schedules because I realized like from 10 p.m. until 3 a.m. there just wasn't really that great performance, and Google was spending a lot of money with the budgets that I had, and so I wanted to eliminate the wasted traffic. So scaling down, once again, going towards profitability, even though I was still profitable, and really being able to get caught up on fulfillment because I had already had like 400 orders at this time. So April 9th, this one was another down day, but once again, I had the same campaign setup, and this was the only day that I was like, okay, I really need to make sure everything is 100% on par. We need to make sure the fulfillment setup, the processing is set up. We need to make sure we have our own logos and stuff now. And then I was like branding my own stuff, so I wasn't running basically a clone copy of somebody else's product, but I was still white labeling it, and I was able to run it on my own. So I also got hit with the DMCA. Got hit with the DMCA, I won the DMCA, then I got hit the next day with a trademark infringement, which I was actually not running any DMCA content or trademark content, so it was kind of like a BS DMCA, and I had to basically resubmit products on Google Merchant Center, which took some time to get set up, get reapproved, and then I had to reshuffle the campaigns. And then I had to basically restructure everything to make sure that I was bulletproof in terms of DMCA, in terms of copyright infringement, and I ended up getting my own trademark on my own products, and I actually got like 50 trademarks that I submitted, which are still underway. That way nobody could essentially copy my products because you don't want to run into that. But once again, this was a bulk of the day. Most of the spend went to the main campaign, which was the Your Montefiore US only. And this one, for instance, I'll go back into the asset groups, was just search themes with nothing else added. And then the branded search campaign, which, once again, brand search only really works if you're running traffic on a different platform. Like if you're running traffic on Facebook, it only works typically if you're doing that. Otherwise, it's a competitor brand search campaign. So for this instance, I was serving my ads on the main brand behind this, and just because they were running ads or they just weren't, and my ads just looked better. They had all excellent on terms of like Google ranking, and my ad score was a 10 out of 10 because I am just good at building copy, and also like with the use of AI, you guys can kind of bypass anything and beat your competitors pretty quickly. Plus, I'm being more aggressive, so spending a bit more to capture the conversion. That way I can make as much money as possible, or just build an email list, or whatever I'm able to do. And like this has 92,000 impressions for the day with clicks that were at 1,200 clicks. So CPC this day was a little bit higher.